Hi everyone, thank you very much for inviting me to speak today. I'm from Phillips Architects. My name is Tom Morgan. Just here to talk to you about our idea of rooftop regeneration. We do a lot of work on housing estates in London, and some housing estates look a little bit like this, and this pretty much ticks all the boxes for places you wouldn't want to live. It's urban detritus, graffiti, broken windows, dead-end routes, streets in the sky that seem to go nowhere, concrete blank facades. And so David Cameron had this wonderful idea that you should knock down the estates. So he's pledged sum of £140 million to tackle 100 of the worst housing estates in the UK. And if you work that through, that's £1.4 million per housing estate. And when you think that Tower Hamlets spent £181 million in their borough alone during the Labour constituency, you start to think that maybe demolition isn't the greatest idea for all of the estates. Yes, it sometimes is a good idea. There are poor quality estates that are badly planned with terrible structure and bad issues with contamination of land, things like asbestos within the existing building fabric. And a lot of the sites that we work on in London have been badly bombed in the war, hence why they were rebuilt. And the notion that the land that the housing estate was actually built on is poor quality, which leads to expensive structural solutions required. Further to this, there are many housing estates that people love to live on, and I'm sure that people have seen in the news case studies such as Cressingham Gardens, which is in the borough of Lambeth, and this is just a photograph of the Occupy Cressingham Gardens movement, which is trying to save the homes because people really do love living on Cressingham Gardens. Similar on Central Hill. This is in Lambeth. There's a whole movement to save the homes of the people who live there because people really do enjoy living on the estates. They've lived there for 40 years. Generations of the same families have lived in the same estates, and they've built a real community spirit. You probably know a little about this third case study, which is the Aylesbury estate. It's in Southwark, and the architects that have worked on the Aylesbury estate have had campaigners storming their offices, and people have attended the REBA Awards to campaign about the fact that the Aylesbury estate is being knocked down and people are generally being pushed out of their houses, pushed to places where they don't want to live anymore and they have no real knowledge of. So to step back a little bit, what could we do instead? This is the type of site that we often get shown in our office. So a very backland site, and this is the site I'm talking about, just this little garage block here. And you'll see that you can't really achieve a very high level of housing on a site like this. Similarly, a second estate with a ball court. This would be a potential site for us, but people really like using that ball court. There are 20 plus existing mature trees on the site, and maybe incidentally, but probably most importantly for the people who live on that estate, there's existing car parking on that site. Every time we go to an estate, people say, where am I going to park my car? And it's the thing that causes most planning risk because the residents get so up in arms about the fact that they need places to take their car with their family. This is another picture from an estate we worked on recently, and a topic which a number of the other speakers spoke about was overlooking and windows onto the site, and it really creates a difficulty in planning small spaces. This is an image, again, of Cressingham Gardens, but it's just trying to portray, when you compare this to the first slide I showed, that estates can be very nice places to live. South-facing balconies on this estate offer lovely amenity space with fantastic views and quite good architectural value. And one thing that I do in my job a lot is look on Google Maps at the sites that we are at. And this is where the germ of our idea came from. I mean, you can see on any computer, Google Map, the expanse of empty rooftop. And if you look around London, on my way to the Excel Centre today, I noticed 10 estates with flat roofs, empty rooftop space. This is an image of an estate in Southwark called the Kipling Estate. And you'll see the flat roof isn't filled with plant. It's accessible because the lift core and staircase already run up to the roof space, and it offers this potential site for rebuilding and new development and new housing. So we've been working with a structural engineer to try and assess specific sites. So the site we've been looking at is in Lambeth, and there are 4 stories of existing concrete block. And the structural engineer proposed that you could easily add 1 or 2 new stories of lightweight structure to create new housing on top of the existing. So the proposal is that you could use existing stairwells or lifts, vertical circulation, and quite relatively, without distracting or impacting too much on existing tenants, offer new accommodation. Often the places at the top of the estates give the best light and they give the best views as well. As other people have mentioned, the idea of using CLT, and so cross-laminated timber, as a structure solution is quite sensible, and the idea of having off-site construction, whereby pods are basically lifted into place within an existing estate. It's very lightweight, and you can redesign the facade of the pod afterwards to integrate it with the existing architecture. So this just shows an axonometric idea of the construction of a rooftop regeneration idea on top of an existing block. You'll see that the facades are basically plugged in to what can be developed off-site, so speeding up the on-site time and reducing the impact on the existing residents. We feel that this plan could be offered as something of a turnkey solution for a number of the different boroughs around London. So we would offer it to the GLA. So this, for example, is, I'm sure a lot of you know, is Robin Hood Gardens, which is in Tower Hamlets, and there's a plan to knock it down at the moment, but the potential scenario that we foresee is offering Tower Hamlets the rooftop regeneration idea, which could be taken forward, and we're not suggesting that there would be a blank windowless facade as is shown on these images. However, we hope that we could redesign and work with what's there to make something which is both relevant to the existing estates, doesn't impact on people's lives, but does offer new housing solution for the capital. Thank you very much for listening.